Happy Love You Day, y'all. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to make a little video to introduce myself, as I clearly am only kind of here, as we all may be. Not to be more weird than I already am, but, that's just comes with the territory, A lot of weird stuff going up on in that noggin, So anyway, we'll start off with whatever this body may be, which I only know that I do not, if that makes any sense. If you know, you know, and if you don't, have fun. What did I even say now? Yeah, I know. So as far as like sounds to respond to, I don't really care, on this particular space-time, Jack is cool. I like to spell it with an X, I like to say it's got a silent S. So silent it's not even there. And honestly, the Jack Sparrow or Jack Sparrow or the Japero, or yeah, I like all of those. They're all fun, but that's originally that just stems from a gamer tag that I made up, like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. I just thought it was clever, because I am a dog, and I'm kind of a pirate, and I'm, kind of a puppet master, and I'm kind of, so much more, and, nothing less, Because the sound that you respond to is, it is important, energy, frequency, and vibration, so like if whatever that sound is that you respond to, if it is raising yourself, that's what it's all about, because that's all we can never really hope for. But as for like, this particular sound, prior to JAX, it was just Jack, I kind of liked the idea of, if I was going to even entertain the, notion of like another sound in addition to that as being necessary, child, and that just stems from one of my most interesting echoes, if you will. I grew up in a pretty hyper conservative Christian household, which I clearly am still recovering from, it's not all bad, but it's definitely not all good, and a lot of the good that you think it is definitely not. And a lot of the bad that you think might be is also very much so not. I'm not taking away from, I'm not saying that it is 100%, false, if you will. There are still diamonds in that very rough patch of literature, but that's, it doesn't seem that way until you start looking beyond that particular book. Once you start looking at all the other books around the world and throughout time that, find that very similar story to be compelling for one reason or another, you start to find some very interesting similarities and differences. It's not, yeah, it's interesting, but once you also have taken the time to see what all of these different perspectives have to say about this one particular idea. You know, one might get a lot closer to the truth of the matter. You know, don't we find that to be self-evident in life itself? You know, outside of the clear fact that, just because, the general public, is like, yeah, that's that's number one. What does that even mean? you know, as if, the hierarchy is real. It's still just one more illusion. It's one more means of control. In the words of Bruce Willis in the Lucky Number 11, it's called a Tennessee Shuffle. And if you don't know, I recommend it. But it stems from that book, and from what I remember, which is also weird because I've been repeating this verse out of the Bible or the Christian Bible, to be specific. NIV was pretty standard, if you want to get, that more, because there's thousands of variations on that story, and that's why it gets so weird. And if you only know one book, I got 99 problems, but a book ain't one. And that book is, it's interesting. It's only like relatively a problem because so many people are still like fixated on it as if like that's the one and only, and it rationalizes all of the things which on the surface are touted to be like the most important thing. Once again, another example of the Tennessee Shuffle. They're saying that this is all the important stuff so that we're just like, yay, this is what we believe. But the same people that are telling the GP to just take that and go away are also doing these things which no one who claims to value that stuff which is touted, the loudest on this, would ever allow themselves. Like, okay, so for example, like this is a great example currently. Okay, because if we're going to talk about the Christian Bible, we also need to talk about the fact that the name Jesus didn't even appear until 400-ish years ago. The word Jesus did not exist when that interesting hypothetical, okay, which there does seem to be a lot of historical evidence for numerous variations of potentially some or many real people, all right, and the same idea where Lao Tzu, the writer of the Tao, was not one guy, because Lao Tzu just means old man. that's literally, that's the author. It's basically written, by a bunch of mystics who lived by themselves as hermits out in the middle of in the woods, and every once in a while they would like pop into town with like little trinkets of, you know, divine wisdom, which is what constitutes that book. And it is, it's like I don't I've read I've read the Tao, numerous times. I've read the Bible numerous times. I've gone through the Mahabharata, a couple of times. I've gone through the Quran, once. I've gone through, actually, you know what? I can honestly say that I have not gone through the Torah, but like, I've gone through the, I've gone through a lot of these ideas, these books that are like, held as sacred, throughout time, and like all the way back, from this stuff that is still currently here, not all of it, but I feel like enough of a portion of it where like, yeah, the rest of I don't need any more verification, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, the puzzle's already been cracked, it's already been put together. We can see now, like, you don't need any more contextual reference than to see what the cuneiform texts from ancient Sumeria, modern day Iraq, had to say, because we have millions of these clay tablets. We have decoded many of them, many, and people are, decoding new stuff every day. I mean, like, just take Sitchin's work, and I have gone through all of Sitchin's work, as well as his like niece's book that she wrote about it, as well as like I don't remember the doctor lady's name that wrote several books in the same regard, and she is not a fan of Sitchin. Like, that's one of the biggest reasons why I listened to her in the first place, is because well, I was interested in the subject, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll see what you have to say. But she came out the gates being like, I am not on board with Sitchin's work. He made so many mistranslations, and I was like, okay, all right, let's see what you have to say. And then she proceeded to like talk about how much he accurately translated, and it seems like she's really just saying, I'm not on board with his work, just to be a voice of contrast, just to say, I don't believe it, but he's got some very interesting points. And that's just real, and because I grew up learning the Christian Bible as thoroughly as I did, and so, like, personally speaking, when I was growing up, like, we weren't just go to church on Sundays, okay? Like, that's how it started when I was really young, okay? But once I was, it might have started perhaps when I was, third-ish grade, something like that. Maybe as early as the second grade. I honestly don't remember. But we started going to church, we were already going to church like twice on Sundays, because of going to church in the morning for the morning service and the evening, and then going back for the evening service, which also included choir practice. So, I mean, like, at the very earliest stages, we're talking about, at least twice on Sundays. And then fast forward to me being, a youth, you know, and now we're going on Wednesdays for youth group activities, young kid church activities. They're us learning Bible verses and us, you know, at least being like active with, like, it was a lot of games, but it was, it was basically just like middle of the week church, but more fun because there were games and it was kid centered, and we made, you know, the pine card derby, boxes and stuff like that. Anyway, so that was then a big part of my life for a long time, until I became, once I was like really in the beginning heat of puberty, like I might have sprung a little early, if you know what I mean, but uh, that's neither here nor there. The point is that when I was like in the 8th grade, which also correlated with my parents, finally finding the magic wonder chemical to like allow me to get good grades in school, because I was just, I was not there, like, whatever. It doesn't matter. 5th grade, they started the testing with pharmaceuticals, and they got me on the Ritalin for a year, and that was a nightmare. And then they put me on, I think, Adderall for a year, and that was, just a lateral move. And then they put me on Dexedrine in the 8th grade, and I had nearly perfect grades, like without even trying. My homework was done before every day before I left school. I had homework done months in advance. I didn't even like pay attention. That's all I did. I didn't pay attention to the teacher for real unless like I really needed to. Um, uh, I was doing my homework in class, especially if I was not inside. I mean, like, yeah, yeah, that, because that was that year, yeah. Um, and if it were not for my freshman year, and um, meeting, a nice little lady friend, you know, um, who we enjoyed each other, a lot for like 2 years, but when we first started hanging out, we met in study hall, and we started like arranging to do homework outside of school together, you know, and uh, one of the first things that she said to me after hanging out, a few times was like, "You're really different outside of school." Like, yeah, they put me on drugs and it makes me real quiet, and but then I get good grades. And she was like, "I like you a lot better without the drugs," and that was it. I didn't need to hear anything else. Like, okay, no more drugs. And I pretty much stopped taking them unless, like, you know, I absolutely needed them, because like I had to focus for extended periods of time, you know. And it worked out okay. I didn't have the great grades, but they weren't bad, you know. I don't know, I still don't even know why I'm telling you. I already lost where I was. So, that's why they put me on the drugs. You can be a pimp and a prostitute at the same time. You just need to focus. Dave Chappelle. Oh, Dave Chappelle, I do hope that you are still real and not a cloned robot. These days, you never know. You never can tell. All I know is that when you came back from Africa, you were a beast. You were, because you were not looking. I said, who is this? Who is this? That is not Dave. That's not Dave. And he started talking, and I was like, Dave? Is it really you? Don't know. Still can't tell. Can't tell. I do know that in my very diligent studies of comedy and comedic genius, Dave Chappelle, you are a giant, which has allowed me to see so much further than I ever would have. And I cannot thank you enough. Anywho, yeah, that's where I was. I was telling you about where the word child in my potential version of a sound that I identify with, the way I remember regurgitating this verse forever, because I remember hearing it and going, yeah, that's what's up. And it's since then I have actually recently I have gone back and tried to find this particular translation that I have been saying for who knows how long. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I've been saying this verse for over 20 years. Probably more like 24 years, give or take. Huh? 28? My goodness. Where does the time go? But anyway, can't find it. Not can't, but have not relocated where it is, but it don't matter because it's still in my heart. And as far as I recall, that's all that matters. Is you got the word in your heart. Because in the beginning there was the word, and the word was. Anyway, I won't get onto that topic quite yet. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it was somewhere around the Beatitudes, because the verse said, "Blessed are those with the heart of a child, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And I heard that, and I was like, "Yup, that is the secret. That is the secret to life. Is never letting go of that childlike heart of yourself. The heart specifically. Okay, because we don't need to go any further than knowing that, when children are, acting outside of, their understanding of their heart, it's more often than not, they are acting in a lower vibration, if you will. And so, like, those are parts, being a child that, We as people are here, and it is our perhaps responsibility to grow from those particular ways of being, you know. And so when you are acting, in your purest heart's state of being, and higher, you know, how could anything else, how could you need anything else, you know? And before that, before Jack Child, was a particular way that I identified, you know. I can't even, I mean, I could, but it's not worth it, So many, so many, so many names, so many faces, so many so many times of learning, so many times of growing. But at the very earliest stages of this body being here, the sound that I was given, no surprise there. My first name is specifically, NIV related. It's pretty easy to figure out. I'll just go ahead and say it. It means gift of God, and if you don't know what that means, I highly recommend looking into it, and not just like what it means, but like what all of those words mean, because that's where all this stuff gets really, really, really confusing. They've been telling us for a long time, all the world's a stage, and that's exactly what this is. That's exactly what's going on, and our, not to go into a negative place about it, and not even necessarily that negativity or negative in its essence is an overall negative. Like when we look at energy, for example, okay, if you want to produce energy, okay, you need to have a negative and a positive, okay, and so like that's so without the negativity, or at least without the essence of negative, the state of being negative, without that contrast to the positive, we all of space-time may implode at that point. That might actually be the point where all of the all returns to itself, which, okay, so now that we're in that, now that we're referencing the all, okay, that's an interesting subject. That's why I seem to be allergic to when people refer to the all as God, because if you look at the literature, if you look at the ideas that are super common, throughout all of them, we find this idea that there is some unnameable, and that's the most important key. This thing which certainly is. There's no argument about that thing being, because we are clearly all here. And all of this is 100% energy, and it's all 100% connected. The illusion is the separation, you know. You know, and because that separation is here, and because we fundamentally misunderstand it and perceive it to be this terrible, bad thing, which means that, you know, I'm on one side and you're on another side, and because we're on different sides, I'm the good guy and you're the bad guy, but you think you're the good guy and I'm the bad guy, and we're never going to meet in the middle. And because we never meet in the middle, because we don't even allow for the space-time for our differences to create something amazing together, like perhaps like free energy. Shh, don't say it out loud. You're not supposed to say that one out loud. Okay? The free energy is still being produced, but it is being hoarded and hidden from what we might consider the general public, the GP, if you will, you know. And like that's a really slippery sort of thing, you know. So anyway, the all is the all. You know, if you have spent time studying, you know, any sort of like any of the hidden sacred, you know, knowledge, you know, the stuff that this character that we have come to know and love by the name of Jesus. I don't even know what that means, but I love it. Well, it probably actually means, like, I am Zeus, you know, I Zeus, you know, because it seems to be where that came from. You know, that's why it's pronounced that way. That's why it was changed, you know, to Jesus from wherever it came. There's so many because, and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter, because once you start looking back far enough, okay, and you start seeing the common storyline that's identical, okay, it's verbatim, okay, between, you know, Jesus and Horus, you know, and Odin and Krishna, you know, and there's at least like 32 of them, you know, and they're all a little bit different, but all of the main bullet points from birth to death, the whole sequence, is 100% carbon copy. It is so bad that if somebody tried to do today what the Roman government did under Emperor Constantine, you know, if the American government today, for example, tried to write a book about a new savior, okay, that shared every single bullet point of, you know, a previous savior's story, and, you know, just tacked on a couple of more books and, you know, did the necessary edits to say, no, it's not the same story, it's different. He was driving a yellow car instead of a red one in The Shining. Stanley Kubrick, you beautiful genius, you. Naughty. With your little confession there in The Shining. It's cute. I don't even know what that means, but I do. So anyway, getting back to whatever point I maybe trailed off from already, is that when you take and add a name to this all-encompassing all, when you realize that that is what's real, okay, you begin to see the truth that all of this war, all of the fighting, all of the separation is exactly what they need you to believe is real in order for them to do this. Because as long as we collectively think of ourselves as different races and different peoples, and like with, you know, different problems and, you know, and different needs, and, you know, we end up allowing these genocides to perpetuate. Okay, you know, like because we think that's their problem. They're the bad guys. You know, you want to know how I know that? Because, you know, I don't even like my neighbors. You know, not necessarily the people that live next door to me, but, you know, there's definitely a whole lot of people that like don't like the people that live directly next door to them. But like that's the whole model of society that we are raised in, because we are raised in a competitive environment as opposed to a cooperative one. They need us to continue to fight amongst each other so that they get to do whatever they want with no consequences. This is the only reason why they do this. Why would they lie to us? Because then they get to do all of the craziest cray-cray ever in the history of ever with no consequences. We're talking all of the stuff that you don't even want to remember is real, you know, in really real time. I mean, that's what, yeah, it's probably why they have the horror movie genre, is so that, like, you know, they can get us to at least pretend to embody those sorts of frequencies, you know, so that it can continue to be real, even though on the surface, you know, we're running around saying, you know, that is totally inappropriate, and if I was, you know, there in real life, I would never allow that. I wouldn't want that to happen to me. I wouldn't want that to happen to anyone, you know, when it is in really real time. But when we are conditioned to wholeheartedly accept this illusion that you are you and I am me, and what I need is somehow different and more important from what you need. And for no other reason other than the fact that I am me and you are you. You know, and we see this in sports. We see this in business. We see, you know, and we don't even have business anymore. You know, there's only the corporate empire, which seems to be crumbling, which is awesome. You know, like I am very much so ready for us to collectively evolve. You know, I'm really yeah, because I'm over it. I'm over this. This is unreasonable. This is unacceptable. And honestly, I will say that this has been my mind for as long as I can remember. You know, when I was in high school, I used to joke that, you know, one day I'll become the first king of America and I'll fix all of our problems. You know, and that's a very lovely and naive sort of way to think about it. You know, but that's because like I was doing the best I could, the best I knew how. You know, I was in that sort of mindset where a power dynamic could actually provide support to the people who need it the most. But that's the power dynamic itself, okay, the hierarchy itself is exactly the thing which demands that there will be people who don't have enough, that they don't have access to the basics, the basic necessities of life. You know, it's really weird. It's really weird how, you know, inside of this space-time, okay, we have certain groups of people who run around and be like, the fetus is the most sacred life ever in the history of ever, and because it can't speak for, you know, itself, I'm going to speak up for it. And that's cool, man. I get it. I get it. I do. But, and there is a big but. These exact same people, once that fetus is born, good luck. Good luck. Best of luck to you. Don't get eaten by the wolves. Let alone the elephants or the jackasses. See what I did there? You're supposed to eat the Quaker oats, not get eaten by the Quakers. That's absolutely crackers. My middle name on the piece of paper, 41 billion years ago, give or take, was powerful leader. You know, which is funny. It's funny that that's the name that I was given because, you know, the only reason it was given to me is because, you know, my dear old ma, Sue, you know, Susie, she wanted me to have my dad's name, which is interesting, you know. Because it was his name, and she loved him, but, Rick. He doesn't. He didn't really want to do that, but he was like, okay, then, I'll compromise with you, and we'll give him it in the middle, So that's how I got that one. And then the last one, is, in the standard sort of typical current American fashion. I got his last name, which he doesn't really know anything about. And I've done a bit of homework on it. I can't really find anything about it. I can't find a crest. I found a lot of people with the last name, which I thought was really weird, because when I was growing up, I never, it's not one of the common ones, but when it wasn't until like MySpace came out that, I was able to just like start searching, and so like, I did a general search, just under the last name, and just found so many people all over the country with that last name. And I literally, at that point, I had seen my last name a few times, like, in Indiana, for example, there is an RV salesman somewhere around there. I don't remember where he is, but he's got a billboard. It's got my name on it, and I was like, "What? That's weird." But especially because it's Germanic, it's also kind of interesting that I looked into trying to find like a family crest under that name, and the searches didn't really come up with anything, which I thought was kind of interesting. And so because of that, I came to the conclusion that when people from, because we already know that when people were coming here from Eastern European countries with, weirdish, last names, if you will, they got Americanized. Okay. And so I don't know. I didn't really, I guess I could have, and I didn't even think about it, but I maybe jumped to the conclusion that when people from, Germanic regions of wherever that word comes from, came here on a boat, it was a different word. And the word that is closest to the spelling is translates into lucky into English. And I was like, what? My name might mean I might be lucky, which is kind of interesting, because I definitely am. There ain't no question about it. I'm about as lucky as it gets. And that is a double-edged sword. I promise you that. Because there are two types of luck. But that's also, through a simplistic binary, lens, which is valid in its own way, but also, it's just one perspective. You know what I mean? No, I know. Neither do I. It's okay. So, gift from God, powerful leader, and maybe lucky, you know. So that's the name that I was born with, you know. And I loved my name. I loved it. I was like, yes. Yes. That is what's up. Until I started learning a lot of the things that I'm aware of today. And I started learning a lot of the history that it's buried under the beds and in the closets and, you know, in the graveyards, if you will. And it made me, well, it didn't make me, but I rationalized, you know, moving away from identifying with that sound, because for the same reason that, like, we are currently, all of us, living on stolen land, you know, which is true only specifically because there are people that are saying that it's mine and not yours, which is the illusion. You know, which is exactly why the English version of that ancient story was written the way it does. Because you start, I mean, just read the book of Deuteronomy, and you probably don't want to identify with that particular literature as your one and only truth, because it's not like it there. Like I said, as I said before, I will not take away from the truth, which is still there, because there are glimmers of hope that are still there, but the story has been changed, and we cannot, like, it's not even a matter of debate at this point. AI could go through all of our literature, which it already has, point out where everything has come from, which it already has, you know, and, you know, crack the code, which it already has, which is why everything seems so weird right now, is because, like, we're on the precipice of, you know, no more rich people and poor people, in the words of Jack Black, you know, which he so eloquently put when he said, I have to think about that. We're leaders to kings. We're really leaders to kings. And what do the two kings do? I remember, do you? Yeah, what do? They do what kings always do, and they poisoned each other's wine. For the good of the land! Can't make this stuff up, folks. I didn't. I've just been collecting all these stories for so long that now, like, the patterns are painfully obvious, you know, and not the good kind, you know. It is good because, at least at this point, you know, I'm in a place where I can talk about these things and smile about them, because I already cried enough. You know, I ain't never lied about about that. That is the one thing. You want to talk about the most important thing that I ever learned in this life is learning how to weep from a state of love. You know, I'm not going to say it's always bad, to cry because you're sad. That's just as appropriate. If you are genuinely sad, and believe me, this life has numerous opportunities to do so. Don't believe me? Turn on the news and see what's happening to our family, because that's all there is. There is no their family. It's our family, all of us. An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. The Boondocks. Through the lens of free R. Kelly. Which I don't... I mean... I don't know. I don't know anything. All I know is I do not know. We know that everything can be faked at this point. The videos we see don't matter. The things we hear don't matter. The things that we think are true don't matter. The only thing that does is, emitting your highest self, being your highest self in every single moment, spreading that love to every possible person you can. And, it ain't about being perfect. It's a process. Progress, not perfection. Because on one hand, we are perfect. We are so perfectly imperfect. Imperfectly perfect, if you will. In the same regard where this thing, which certainly is one of the deepest truths that helped me to go, wow, wow. That whatever this thing is, which Christians call God, okay, cannot be named. They literally, in the book, tell you that through the voice of the all, the I am that I am. The I am did not say, I am God with a dick. Beg your pardon. It did not say, I am a man God. No. It said, I am that I am. Because that's all you can classify it as. It is masculine, it is feminine, it is life, it is death, it is existence, it is non-existence. It is everything all at once. And they also tell us that this thing, this all, is beyond human comprehension. That simply